It is 2 o'clock and we're going to go ahead and get started because we have a lot of information to cover today. So welcome to a very special edition of the Purdue at Westgate webinar series. My name is Samantha Nelson and I'm the program manager for the Purdue Foundry at Westgate, which is located within the Westgate Academy. If you are attending this webinar, then you probably have an interest within the Westgate at Crane Tech Park, the Naval Support Activity Center at Crane, or an interest in the innovation and collaboration of our region to support each of these economic assets. We at Purdue at Westgate strive to be a valuable resource and connecting point to the mentioned partners. I personally have been within the tech park for almost 11 years. I have seen and been through several ebbs and flows, but in my experience here, this is the most vibrant and collaborative time I have witnessed. Whether we are a place for training, a place for office space, defense event space, supporting defense startups, or just knowledge sharing opportunities like this one today, we like to think that we continue to support the immense warfighter mission on a daily basis, as most of you probably do too. We want the same things you do. We want to help support the regional economy thrive with the hopes of creating jobs and new innovations within the next decade and beyond. And the panel members that we have today have some insight on what that might look like. We can't tell you how excited we are to have the panel members that we have on today's webinar. I believe each one of them will go through a little intro, but know that there is a plethora of knowledge that will be shared by all today. We are extremely fortunate to have Tina Peterson with Regional Opportunity Initiatives as our moderator, with panel members of Captains Mckay, NSWC Crane, General Cliff Tully, and Brian Langley with the Indiana Economic Development Corporation. Your mic should be muted, and we ask that they remain that way during the panel discussion. Videos are optional on your part, so it's whatever you're comfortable with. Unfortunately, due to the 1 hour time frame, there will not be a Q&A session afterwards. But after the webinar, you will receive the recording as well as some contact information from each of the panel members so that you can potentially ask direct questions to them afterwards. With no further ado, let's go to the panel discussion. Tina?
Samantha. Really want to first thank Samantha and Purdue at Westgate for bringing us all together around a topic that is of such relevance to individual and organizations, not just here locally or regionally, but at the state and national level as well. We have 3 exceptional speakers, as Samantha mentioned, on our panel today, and I'd like to begin by giving you a brief introduction to each of them. They'll share more about themselves in their opening comments in a few minutes. First, Captain Duncan Mckay. He assumed command at NSWC Crane in July 2020. He's a native of Tampa, Florida, graduated from Florida State University with a bachelor's in physics. Since being commissioned in 1996, Captain Mckay has been deployed across the globe, received a naval engineer's degree from MIT, served in roles of increasing responsibility within the Navy, and been honored with numerous medals and awards. We're fortunate he was chosen to continue his career with NSWC Crane and in the Indiana uplands. Next, Major General Cliff Tully. He serves as the president of the Defense Development for the Indiana Economic Development Corporation, where he is tasked with growing Indiana's defense industry. General Tully has had a long and illustrious career spanning 41 years in the military and National Guard. He has more decorations and honors than I can count on 6 hands and has been a leader in the Indiana defense sector both during and since the completion of his military career. His experience and commitment to Indiana serve us well in his role at IEDC. Next, Brian Langley was hired to serve as the Vice President of Defense Development just about 1 year ago and assumed his role on January 6, 2020 with IEDC. He too is a rock star, previously serving as the Executive Director of the Indiana Homeland Security, a Global Security Manager for Cummins, Inc. in Indianapolis, as a consultant with Booz Allen Hamilton, and working for the Department of State at the White House earlier in his career. The combination of his public and private roles make him a great fit for his defense-related role at IEDC and working with General Tully. As we begin today, I'd like to ask all of our panelists to make some introductory comments. Following their remarks, they'll answer a few questions for us. First up, Captain Mckay, welcome, number one. You've not been here with us long in the Indiana uplands, but I'm hoping you're beginning to feel at home. Given the complexities of our current reality, I suspect is a hard word today, apparently. Suspect that you've not had the chance to meet as many people as you'd like to. I think we'd all like to hear a bit more about you, your background, and your early impressions of NSWC Crane and of Indiana.
Sure. Good afternoon, and thanks for having me, Tina. So you are right. I have not been able to get out and meet as many people or as many organizations as I would have liked, but that's all due to circumstances none of us can control. A little bit about myself, as you mentioned, so I've been in the Navy running on 25 years. I started off my career in submarines, fast attack submarines, and I bring that up because you know, my foundational experiences as a young officer and as a leader in the United States Navy really started with small units, small groups, and that type of relationship with my fellow coworkers and missions that we do for the Navy. And as I learned and discovered and settled in at Crane, I can tell you that I'm right at home at Crane. So we have very much a family feel. We know each other. We have a shared vision of not only responsibility, but accomplishment and responsibility to the mission, but also responsibility to each other. So I very much enjoyed it, Crane. Again, it brings me back to, you know, lots of memories on a submarine where it's a small group of guys working together day in, day out for the same mission, regardless of your rank or your title. And you know each other very well. It seems to be in the military, you do a lot of things. They require you to do a lot of things in either pitch black or near pitch black, and you know your neighbor by their body movements or their breathing or whatever. And that's that kind of same level of familiarity we have at Crane. And I very much enjoy that. And it just, again, it fits like a glove.
Thank you. So glad to hear that. General Tully, you've been a friend of Crane for a very long time. In this relatively new position at IEDC, one that's new to Indiana, you have a relevant but different role. Can you share more with us about your role and how your previous experience prepared you for that? And also remind us all about the governor's goals as it relates to accelerating growth of the defense sector in Indiana.
Thank you, Tina. I've had a great good fortune to serve over 4 decades with a great amount of warfighters, and and everybody here realizes it's all about the warfighter. And so, having been in over 40 years, as most know, that DoD tends to work in those 4-decade cycles. So I came in at the beginning of the last cycle, and as a young lieutenant in the 101st Airborne Division, my platoon was used as a test dummies on the runoff competition between the 3 variants that were competing to be the Black Hawk. And now we're at that point now, 40 years later, where they're starting that process to replace that Black Hawk and all the other systems and so on. So I've had the opportunity to live that life cycle of a warfighter and also the technology and all the capabilities that are provided to the warfighter so that they can fight and win out there on the battlefield. And the great thing about that is that, and this is what the governor and the Secretary Schellinger and I've talked about, is we are at that position now here in the state and the nation. We're at the beginning edge of the next 40-year cycle, and the new technologies and everything else that are being developed to provide those capabilities that our warfighters are going to need for the next 4 decades are unfolding before us right now, and those nowhere more than right here at Crane. And so the systems that we're seeing here is going to serve our country and our nation's security for some time to come. And from a state's perspective, this is the ideal position to be in if we're going to be a player and a participant in our nation's security, to reposition ourselves. Because all the old is going out, the new is coming in. It begins with the research and development side of the house in terms of developing those capabilities, and then goes into the procurement and the deployment and operation and maintenance side of the house. And so the governor, recognizing this window of opportunity for us to to inject ourselves into this as a action and thought leader at the national level, has basically declared, that put forth a statement that we're going to triple our defense spending between now and 2024. And that's not a unrealistic opportunity. I mean, an unrealistic goal, because quite honestly, what that really means, it translates into it. If you look at the defense spending and opportunities and everything else, that really means us capturing 1.5% of the total to spend. And considering the fact that in 2008 we had almost 2%, that is easily attainable. And not only that, but the fact that we're positioned right here where we can be a major player in systems that are going to provide Hoosier jobs, well-paying jobs, high-tech jobs for the next 40 years, lies at the heart of what we're doing. And so there's the correlation between the cycles, the opportunities, the fact that we're blessed with having a capability like Crane here, and then the great Hoosiers we have that are working in the high-tech fields, the colleges and universities and so on. We're well positioned in order to achieve the governor's goal and put Indiana on a map in the defense area.
You paint a pretty exciting picture for the future. Thank you. Brian, clearly the two of you have some skill sets that complement one another. In your role, you were brought on specifically to develop a strategic plan for long-term state investment in the defense marketplace. Can you talk a little bit more about your role and how we increase Indiana's capture of defense investment?
Yeah, and I think the general spoke well to this, so I guess I'm the politician in the room, having served both the current serving the governor, a former president, and a governor of California. The thing that I think that's best with Indiana is the fact that we have incredible partnerships. There's a clear vision that the general's articulated and the great work that Crane's doing. But if you see too what this is all about, strategic planning, innovation, partnerships, I think that's what sets Indiana apart from many. My role really is to kind of support the general and the secretary with operational milestones, key performance indicators, developing those partnerships that really will set us apart. And it's really, again, you don't want to make it too complex. You really want to engage the proper stakeholders and find those common denominators that we can all agree to. And as the general said, a lot of it's straight for us. It's like Crane in terms of hypersonics, the digital threat, and these things that you're seeing, and how COVID has also changed the landscape. So when you look at these tech parks, what Crane is doing, you can see these innovation opportunities that are really kind of transcending the things that we need to be thinking through in the future. And that's the exciting part about my role, is making sure operationally, stakeholder-wise, and engaging people about finding those common grounds and really marketing the heck out of Indiana, because there's some incredible things happening here. And to the general's point, if we can kind of let people know what we have going on, both in Washington, D.C. and other areas, we're going to really set the mark. And that, I think, we can do pretty effectively.
Thanks, Brian. We've talked a lot over the years that we tend to be a little too humble in the state of Indiana. So it's part of your job to make sure we're telling a better story about who we are and what our capabilities are.
Yeah, I think so. And I think it's okay to be proud and to market yourself in a very proactive, strategic manner. And largely that's based on, the things we have here, working with Crane, working with our friends in Washington, D.C. We can do so. We can be humble at the same time, but we should be very assertive and aggressive, because at the end of the day, to the general's point, it's a warfighter. It's about jobs. It's about investments. And I think Indiana, among any other state, can do that very well.
Thank you. Okay, great start. I'd like to now ask you guys a series of questions. And first up is a question I'd like to direct to Captain Mckay first, and then to General Tully. So I think we've heard it referenced already that NSWC Crane's relevance to the national defense strategy has never been more significant. Sometimes we talk about this perfect storm moment we have right now. Working closely with the group of key defense sector partners, ROI is now completing an update on the region's defense industry strategy. This analysis, conducted by Taconomy Partners, which is the same consultant that originally did our strategic plan for economic and community prosperity in the uplands, speaks to the catalytic impact of NSWC Crane on this region in its role as a national leader in its 3 strategic mission areas and its growing expertise in emerging technologies. Captain Mckay, could you speak to NSWC Crane's strategic context as it relates to the National Defense Strategy, modernization priorities, and the relevance of Crane's mission areas?
Sure, Tina. So I can very confidently say that we are very well aligned with all efforts at the national level. So as a matter of fact, today, as a senior management group, we were going over our most latest revision for our mission statement. We still retain the 3 core mission areas that most folks are familiar with, our strategic systems, our expeditionary warfare, and our electromagnetic spectrum warfare. And so we retain those, but we also wanted to highlight that we are now more than ever focusing on science and technology, research and development to further establish ourselves as national technical leaders in those fields that we are the best at. I had an optic here with me, but given the camera angles, I'm not going to post it up, but it's just by way of an example. It's a visual aid that my folks use with me. So it's an organizational chart of the Undersecretary of Defense for Research and Engineering's, his staff. And what we've been able to annotate on it is by highlighting, we are able to show where Crane's leadership and Crane's focus areas overlap almost 70 to 80% with all the different branches and organizations within that research and engineering organization at the secretariat level. So again, and in some instances, we absolutely have senior managers that we've grown here at Crane are in significant positions on those staff. So they are physically located. They're Crane employees, but they're located there with the directors of the various branches and departments there at OSD. They're right there on the ground. So we have so again, and that's a credit to our ability to grow, groom, and then focus our folks on those efforts. And in particular, things like we've mentioned hypersonics, trusted microelectronics, command, control, and communications, 5G development, and various other things. And that's that's from a technology standpoint. If we go look at kind of, never mind the specific technologies, but let's look at at strategies. Let's look at specific long-term national goals for the Department of Defense. Again, we're very well positioned there as well. And I'll have to take a look at my notes just so I don't mess them up. But things like Project Overmatch, our Expeditionary Advanced Base Operations, and Distributed Maritime and Strategic Operations. Again, Crane is looked at from the Secretariat level as for close advice, instruction, and recommendations on how to develop and integrate and grow those strategies. And so that's our, again, so I think we're very well positioned. We spend a lot of time, and that's not by accident. Crane has, over the past several years, really done a lot of introspective looking at its organization. And we have divested ourselves of some mission areas with the intent to invest in some of these others. That is by design, and that will continue to be by design to get us the results that I just described, and that we are positioned very specifically and almost exactly to meet the needs of the DoD, the Pentagon, and then more specifically for the Navy for those national efforts.
Thank you. So General Tully, so would you expand upon some of these comments and help us understand how the growth of NSWC and its prominence and its contracting community really impacts the state's defense growth strategies, and especially as it relates to these conversations about growing emphasis on R&D?
Well, Crane impacts the state in multiple dimensions, if you will. If you think about it, start off with, from a strategic perspective, if you watch the news right now, it's all about China. And when you say it's all about China, then the primary response to that is the Navy. And so there's a lot of emphasis now, dialogue going on in the DC about the Navy and repositioning and re-equipping, if you will, the Navy directed towards that type of threat. So number one is Crane represents a priority, not only for the state, but for the nation, and a critical part of our nation's strategy. The second thing is the governor has said triple defense spending. And so what that means is we basically have divided that up into two dimensions, if you will. So number one, we recognize that that spending capture is done by our players who are operating in that market space. And there's really three groups of those. Our defense installations and activities that are here, such as Crane. The second is small businesses, and the third is our medium and large businesses that are playing in the large acquisition programs. So that's one dimension that we're working at. And we see our role as helping them to increase their probability of win, but we know they're the ones that actually do it. But then the other dimension we're looking at is actually appropriations, where the money is. And the three big ones, pots of money if you are, is R&D, procurement, and operations and maintenance. And so Crane represents the main effort, if you will, within the state in that R&D pot of money. The fact that it exists, that it has a high priority, that it has some of the top programs, if not the top programs, the highest priority programs within defense, makes it a magnet, if you will, for those type of investments in the state. The Crane itself impacts the state two ways. Its own organic research is doing, and so in the state, that means high-paid jobs that are folks that are federal civilian employees or in uniform, that are living in our community and so on. But the second thing is also what they reach out and buy in terms of products and services and so on to support their research and development. So they act as a hub, if you will, if they are the hub, if you will, in the states, in the governor's plan for growth in that R&D sector, acting as the hub of a R&D cluster that stretches across the state and the nation and so on. And so when you think about that, I mean, that was the whole purpose of Westgate coming into being years ago, was to provide a platform, if you will, to leverage all the opportunities that existed within the gate. And so what can I say? If you look at the governor's plan, R&D, procurement, operations and maintenance, we're sitting in the epicenter of one of those efforts right now.
Once again, you make the future look very exciting. And, I have to put my regional hat on here and say, Crane has such significance to this particular region as well as to the state of Indiana, and what a role it plays really in prosperity, economic and otherwise, in Southwest Central Indiana or the Indiana uplands. And so I know how eager we all are to play our part in supporting the state strategy. So thank you for sharing that with us today. Question number 2 here is for Captain Mckay and for Brian. You'll see a theme. Sorry, Captain Mckay, you're in every group. NSWC Crane has been forthright about the significance of regional embrace to its overall success. In fact, they've gained national recognition for their emphasis on the innovation ecosystem, partnerships that start here at home but go well beyond, and the ecosystem as an imperative for success for NSWC Crane. Captain Mckay, can you speak to Crane's strategic focus on collaboration and the innovation ecosystem as a determinant of your success?
Absolutely. So I can assure everybody that strategic collaboration is very much a strong pillar in the overall strategy for NSWC Crane. So as a Department of Defense research establishment, we have an unusual appetite for collaboration. It is absolutely pivotal to everything that we do. Just as an example, so last fiscal year in FY20, Crane executed over 1.7 billion with a B, a Bravo, $1 billion in contracted obligations alone. That was just NSWC Crane, and that translates into, working with over 2,500 contracted employees, which is in partnership with our 3,800 or so government employees. So that's just one specific example of the lengths to which we go to ensure we are collaborating with folks outside what I call outside the fence line. So it's if you go back to my what I tried to explain with giving examples of how we have aligned our focus areas, growing our leadership and management on an individual basis, and then the talents that we, the talents and the skill sets that we try and groom for them and train them in and geared them and focused them towards those areas that I mentioned. I used the example of how well we overlap with, in one particular, say, technology, the modernizing technology example at the secretariat level. You know, collaboration is the natural complement to that technical leadership that we have got a good grasp on there at the secretariat level. And by that, what I mean is we have a good positioning with the secretariat. And so we rely very heavily on, you know, leadership. Leaders don't do everything themselves. They need supporting cast to fully have the effect we're going after. So what that means for us is absolutely collaboration. So we need reach back. We need reach back to, and the more reach back we have, the broader the array of opportunities, the array of connections, the array of skill sets we have access to, then that translates to more and more complex challenges that we can together solve for the United States Navy and in turn for the DoD. So as I say, so if you look at it on kind of a long-term, in a long-term perspective about we have at Crane, you know, we've developing the collaboration, but also working very hard to groom the right leaders for the nation. And then in turn, they are going to in turn reach back and get help via the collaborative efforts that we have established and we work on. So again, this is part of strategy, and by that, you know, I meant to say this is a long-term goal. This is not a short-term requirement. This is an intentional, long-term goal to maintain that, establish that, and then grow that capability. So very much looking forward to it. It's very much part of our at the command level and our senior management level. We talk about it a lot. It's very much part of our day-to-day business.
I think it's been interesting as you've engaged so many of us in sort of the innovation ecosystem work in the region. Number one, it's really allowed all of us to leverage those relationships you've helped build around your organization to really advance other opportunities in the region as well. And so I think an outgrowth of your focus on the innovation ecosystem has been to the rest of the region and the way that we work together. And so for that, I am deeply appreciative. I'm also always impressed to hear that what you've done here isn't a norm necessarily, but maybe it's becoming a best practice for other warfare centers and DoD related entities, because I know that this embrace of the region has gained you a lot of admirers across the system.
Yeah, so a little bit of bragging. We do have some accolades on that front. No denying that. We've got some. Again, it's people that make that happen. So, but again, we've got good people in good positions, but I think the key is for Crane, and again, this gets back to the intentional strategy. Is we have intentionally provided them the breathing space and the ability to focus on those efforts. And it's not a collateral duty. It's not a part-time job. It's not a, hey, if you get time, do this stuff. No, we have developed, now granted, they're maybe small compared to some of the other larger missionaries we do, but we have small organizations within Crane that is their job. Mm-hmm. Because, and again, that is intentional and it's for a long-term strategic goal. Okay. So again, it's I'll accept the thanks on behalf of some of our hardworking folks, but again, it's an organizational effort on the behalf of Crane.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. It's great to be a part of that. And you return the favor while you invite many of us to be engaged in work. You are also reciprocating by being engaged in the work that we do as well. And so I just want to say thank you for that. And then I'll segue over to you, Brian, there, if you don't mind. In your role, you're focused on building strategic partnerships. And can you speak to the significance of collaboration and helping not only Crane, but also the state of Indiana achieve its defense goals?
Yeah, it really comes down to low-hanging fruit, which is about partnerships. Partnerships does a lot of things. It yields diversity, unique outcomes, but also kind of gives you an opportunity to kind of come together as one and really showcase the skills and the talents that maybe people sometimes take for granted. I know that the US government particularly fancies partnerships just for a multitude of reasons, but one is just saying, hey, we do things, here's how we adopt this unique mindset, and here's this different solution sets, what the general has talked about, on what we can apply to you. So it's a difference of thought, difference in terms of approach, and you converge different technologies at once, which kind of gives you a whole opportunity to see things in a different light. The partnerships are also important too, is like you have a common voice, a common operating picture, you can communicate more effectively about what things you can do together. And I think that's really neat, especially, what's going on with COVID. We need to have that kind of successes. And the successes that we can have in Indiana, unlike many states, my personal view, is that we can come together and really promote what we're doing here. One thing we can do that, or at least two things that come to mind immediately, low-hanging fruit, is making sure we can market Indiana, these small businesses, the things that we're doing here in Indiana, especially with Crane. And the general has really kind of entrusted us to really develop this, digital platform that promotes Indiana. So you have these people who can see what we're selling and what we're doing and can really get us out there. And that to me is a great way of actually sharing what we have to offer. So the small businesses, those who are listening to things, what can we do to promote you, market your resources, to compete and to win? And what can we do to reduce the bureaucracy or just the number of websites that someone has to go through to kind of search for a widget or a gadget, when we'll give you a one-stop shop resource that does that for free. So that's an important piece. The other thing that if we're listening to our stakeholders, to Hoosiers, to our regions, is what can we do to support you? Well, one thing that's very clear in the past several months that we've been looking at this and analyzing that is marketing our regions, marketing our people, marketing our Chamber of Commerce's, marketing our defense groups that are existing out there. And so that's one thing that the general is, again, get these working groups together, get them like strategically positioned to promote what we have to sell. And I guarantee you're going to see some really great trajectory results by what we're doing here. And again, that's based on partnerships. What Westgate's doing here is a great opportunity, a great example. If you come into this facility, you see the different stakeholders who are here, who are inhabiting this office space. There's a lot of different things happening here. And that's a great thing that we should do and that we should really be advocating for. So partnerships is key and crucial to what we do.
I love that. The comments about marketing, marketing our regions and our other entities. And so I'd like to put you on speed dial. We've talked a lot about that, how significant that is and how challenging that can be sometimes as individual regions to tell that story without the help of entities like yours.
Well, I would think that if you look at from, with DOD or DHS or other federal agency, they've got so much that they're going on right now. So you have to really inch yourself to show them what we've got going on and really kind of make that strategic engagement. And that will go a long way to support them too. I mean, we've talked a lot about trying to advocate more people from DC living in Indiana. So you're closer to the action, closer to what's happening. You get that ground intel. And so again, that's just another opportunity of collaboration.
I appreciate that. Big sign, right? It says Westgate at Crane right there. And of course, that's where we're sitting today, socially distanced, of course. And just so you know, we were wearing our masks until we got up here and sat far away from each other. The Westgate Academy is really a critical ecosystem asset as we think about the importance of ecosystem here. It was established in 2013, and it's located within the Westgate at Crane Technology Park. The park itself was formed as an outcome from the BRAC process in 2005, and we're now 15 years later, right? And the park is home to 40 organizations and approximately 875 employees, almost exclusively focused on supporting and expanding the mission of NSWC Crane. ROI, our organization, has been working with the Westgate Authority, with Greene, Davies, and Martin Counties, Radius, Indiana University, Purdue University, and others, to really thinking about how we continue to activate this park for its next 15 years, really in a way that complements the development that's already taken place here today. A master plan has been created, which anybody can access on the ROI, the Regional Opportunities website. It really offers a new vision for creating a multi-use technology park built around the concept of a park within a park. It will be part of what differentiates this park from other technology parks, is this emphasis on building this intersection between work and play, and what might be thought of more of a live, work, play environment here at Westgate Technology Park. We're thinking about how we build out the natural settings here to support recreation in the region. We are in a region that has some recreation or park deserts. And so really thinking about this very large piece of land, it's a very large technology park if you're not familiar with it, and how we can use some of those resources for multiple purposes while we're also continuing to really drive people into this particular technology park. But while it is certainly a beautiful natural setting, its real goal is to be uniquely positioned as a thriving technology park. This maturation of our tech park and with the focus on best practice for innovation, districts will really position Westgate to support the growth and the relevance of our region and, of course, our defense sector. So as we think a little bit about Westgate at Crane and the incredible opportunity that it offers here to us, I'd like to ask you, Captain Mckay, how as you continue to grow, will Westgate continue to contribute to mission success for you, and why its continued growth is essential to the mission of NSWC Crane?
Sure. So I can assure you that a vibrant Westgate Tech Park is absolutely crucial to NSWC Crane's approach and our long-term vision for mission accomplishment. So I've, shortly after I arrived at Crane, I was briefed on the master plan that you mentioned. I'm a big fan of it. I have described it to family members who have never set foot in Indiana, and they can intuitively grasp how important that is for a command such as Crane that, as we've already discussed, relies heavily on partnerships, collaboration, connections, relationships with lots of different organizations, profit, nonprofit, academia, government, commercial, you name it. So again, it's fairly instinctively obvious that this structure and this compound, this campus, however you want to describe it, is A, important, but B, it's a, I don't like to use necessarily the word force multiplier because it gets used in a lot of different conversations, but it is definitely a catalyst for everything we're doing here at NSWC Crane. And by that, I mean, could we still accomplish what together, again, the partnerships we have between Crane as the institution and all the partners we have and hope to have in the future in the surrounding areas, could we still accomplish it without Westgate? I'm sure we could. But with Westgate, it only expands all the opportunities. It only accelerates all the ability to achieve solutions, achieve objectives. It just makes everything better. So just in and of itself, in its current state, it's very important and very much enjoyed and valued. And then, so again, thinking back to the master plan again, which when my wife came to visit a couple months ago and we drove past here, I made sure to point it out to her and said, "See, this is this park I'm telling you about. If I got this big plan, it's going to have parks, it's going to have this, that, and that. It's got all the stuff you mentioned." So again, it gets me excited. So again, just thinking about how the number of employees that we have here right now, the number of businesses and organizations that are involved here now. I mean, look into the future and having that grow. Again, I wear it, as representing NSWC Crane, I certainly only see just the large increase in opportunities, again, for us to accomplish those objectives that I talked about when you asked the first couple of questions. And then again, it's just a catalyst for establishing more relationships, strengthening all that trust we have for, not only the organizations we work with now, but organizations in the future. It serves as almost a physical node for that approach. So again, in the near term and the long term, Westgate is very critical, very much valued, certainly not underrated or underestimated at all. And we're very thankful it's here, and we look As we, we've got some new construction going on here recently. We were all very happy that that occurred. And again, Westgate's success means nothing but good for all of us, including NSFC Crane. So we very much value it, appreciate it, and looking forward to its growth in the future.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. We talked a moment ago about how different this place is now that you have an I-69, and you mentioned driving by it. It hasn't always been easy to drive by this technology park. So maybe another perfect storm moment in our evolution, right, in this region is now that I-69 is sitting there right next to the technology park. So General Tully, Westgate at Crane Tech Park was a project of the state certified tech park program. So can you talk about how a tech park like this one supports our state defense goals, and what role can the state of Indiana play in supporting Westgate's ongoing growth and viability?
Absolutely. I have the good fortune at this point in my life of working for two great leaders, Secretary Schellinger, Secretary of Commerce, and of course, Governor Holcomb. And I have the opportunity of sitting as the fly on the wall, listening to their discussions and stuff. And it reminds me so much of the military, where in the military, leaders think about two tasks: accomplishing the mission and taking care of the welfare of the soldiers. In their case, they're constantly talking about taking care of the Hoosier and providing for their families and improving their quality of life and so on. And they go through in terms of what tools do they have in order to accomplish that mission, that dual mission, if you will. And so you hear things about high-tech jobs, advanced manufacturing, education, and so on and so on, those type of things. And then you think, you hear about the strategies of how we're going to do that, and it's centered around creating now the jobs of the future. And so when you look at the tools in the toolbox, if you will, for the state and improving the well-being of Hoosiers and improving the quality of life and providing for that future, then you see that one of those critical tools is these tech parks, because they are the incubator, if you will. They are the accelerator of transforming the technologies under development today into the jobs of the future. And so when you see a particular, this tech park, and that's important wherever they might be positioned in the state, but in this particular case, you have one that has a symbiotic relationship with this laboratory. And if you look back in history, the beginnings of things like Silicon Valley and all these other types of what are known nowadays as these high-tech centers, it began with a federal laboratory there. And the federal laboratory sparking the local thing. So what we have here in terms of Westgate, to me, at least, and this is just my opinion, is that this is the incubator of our own Silicon Valley, and Crane is that piece that adds that fuel to that fire in order to generate it. And so in terms of this, of it functioning as a tech park, I can't think of anything that's more important or critical to the future. Our children's children, the future of Indiana, than having a capability like this. And then you add to that the tools that the rest of the state brings to it, and from IEDC and the others that are enablers for particularly small businesses to establish themselves and to thrive in this market. Then this is, to me, it's one of the critical ingredients for the future of Indiana. And so I'm always a big advocate for these type of activities and entities, because I think it's just it's important not only to the state but for the nation.
Thank you. Brian, one of your priorities, as I understand it, is to focus on improving the resiliency of the defense sector supply chain in the state of Indiana. Is there any intersection between technology parks and supply chain related strategies?
Yeah, very much so. It's hard for me too, because I think what the captain and general alluded to has been really spot on. This place offers a level of resiliency that you really need to have, particularly when it comes to our adversaries. If you look at the strategy and the results of Westgate, for example, and the jobs and the growth that they've been able to accomplish here, and then the businesses that are forming in and outside the walls of not just Crane, but of course working with Westgate, it's truly remarkable about what these kind of energies are doing to adopt a stronger mindset towards not just localized resiliency, about building up, again, an ecosystem of jobs, of growth, of taxes and the incentives that it comes with it, but also the product that goes out to support not only just sort of supply chain, but to the general's point, the warfighter. And you're seeing that here. If you take a look at what's happening from Westgate within the walls, and of course within Crane and outside of Crane, there's some incredible things that are occurring that's going to really translate itself very well towards the future. The general shared with us an article not too long ago about CMMC, the cybersecurity maturity model, and what we need to do to adopt that resilient mindset towards cybersecurity and the way of the future. Well, so much of that's being done within the walls of Crane and of course with Westgate in terms of how they're securing their data, their infrastructure. So I just see it parts and parcel. I think there's some great things happening here.
Thanks, Brian. Well, I think we, have come to understand that this is a place where we can take things from possibility to reality, right? And so we have such a great foundation here at Westgate at Crane in this first 15 years of its existence. And then I think the next 15 years are going to be pretty exceptional for Westgate at Crane. And so how grateful we are for the partnerships with the state as we think about advancing this particular technology park. So it's a unique one, right? A 3-county technology park that's one. So we're proud of that. Okay, so appreciate all of your comments. As we're moving towards the end of our time together, I wanted to really give Captain Mckay time to make a few remarks about what comes next. And so we have a little bit more than 5 minutes remaining. You can have a few more minutes even if you want them, to really think about what's ahead. What's ahead for NSWC Crane, and what will the coming decade look like for NSWC Crane, and what that means to our region and to our state and our key partners in your work.
Sure. I think initially I'll describe it as opportunities are abundant. So we don't foresee any shortage of challenges that Crane can tackle, but more importantly, will be asked to tackle by Big Navy, by DoD. I described earlier how, intentionally we have assumed positions of technical leadership and some very critical problems, challenges that the Navy and the nation needs to solve. And so we are, in some instances, in some of those, hey, we've made great strides, but I think in all of them, we have plenty more work to do, plenty more refinement for some of the solutions that, again, the partnerships that we've established and the work they've done, we have plenty more to go, plenty more work to be done as a group, a Crane and its partners, and those partners, again, anywhere, academia, commercial, profit, nonprofit, government, you name it, we've developed all those. And so again, I think even just looking at the core mission areas and some of the specific technologies and strategies that we're working on right now, that's plenty for a good long while. But I'll go one step further. And so this is something, so this is my personal opinion, but something that I think I've developed in my time at Crane is I mentioned before about how NSWC Crane is looked at from significant higher echelon organizations in the Navy and the nation, not just necessarily because of its location, but because of the talent in its people and how it thinks. And so I'll use this extreme example. If I were to wipe out all those, to say, hey, all those are problems, take out my magic wand and solve all the problems that I mentioned. They're all done. They're all in the dump pile. They don't exist anymore. I feel very strongly that whatever the next round of challenges are, Crane would still be looked to for leadership and development of whatever the solutions to those challenges were. Because again, and it's a partnership. Again, it's also based on, we talked about the accolades that NSWC Crane has earned through its partnership, its relationships, the trust that it has with all its different partners. Again, even if I were to wipe out the current challenges, I submit that Crane would be looked to using those same talents, those same partnerships, those same, all that, this park itself, using all that we already have to apply those to the next round of challenges. So again, and one way of thinking about it is at its heart, our group, Crane and its partners, it's really how they work, not necessarily what they work on, but it's how they function, how they think, how they're able to interact with each other. And again, I put a lot of weight on trust between organizations, people, units, whatever you want to call it. And that's obviously evident in what we're doing right now. So again, that wouldn't change just based on the topic of which we're, the problem that we're attempting to solve. So again, I look to that as a long-term strength for Crane in the area and its partnerships in the state of Indiana, again, based on, the discussions about the focus that the state government has on DoD is, again, even if you take the specifics of the problems we're working on, just that core talent and that trust and the relationships is still going to be there, and you can apply that to anything. So as long as we're willing to adapt to a different, a different direction, but the same amount of hard work, the same amount of innovation is going to be needed, the same amount of critical thinking, that's all resident in the people, not the problem. So, and that's resident in the groups, that we have and the ties that we have. That's all still going to remain. So that's another way I think even longer term, you could look at that even longer term, is that change the problem set. The true heart and the true value of the organizations and organizations in Indiana remains. And again, it's a group effort. So I mean, we couldn't I couldn't say all this without, knowing that we have such great relationships with all the folks that we do. I mean, first of all, the state of Indiana itself, the state government, General and Brian's organization, the Economic Development Corporation, Regional Opportunities Initiative, Purdue University, Notre Dame University, Indiana University. Again, all those academic, commercial, government organizations combined with Crane, we're able to accomplish any of that together. So hopefully that answers the question. Is again, if we're looking to what does the future hold, what does the future look like? I think at a minimum, we've got a lot of work to do on the problem sets we have in front of us with those national strategic defense objectives. But you could take all that away tomorrow, and I think we'd still have we'd have a stuff to work on.
Awesome. Thank you very much. So anything the two of you would like to add in closing?
No, I'll tell you that the state and the governor and the secretary are dedicated to this mission of tripling defense spending, and that it sees Crane and its economic cluster, if you will, is personified in Westgate as being key central components of that accomplishing that strategy. So we're all in terms of doing what we can to help them and then the Hoosiers and also our nation.
Thank you, General Tully. Brian, he's good. Well, I want to thank everybody, our big audience of 4. We'd like to thank you for being with us today and sitting far away from each other and from us, but it's awfully nice to see smiling faces while we're here today. So thanks for being with us. And a big thank you again to Samantha, to Purdue at Westgate, and of course to these 3 gentlemen for really helping paint a picture of what not only today looks like here for NSWC Crane and at Westgate, but also for the future. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Tina. Thank you very much for doing this today, Tina and Captain Duncan Mckay, Major General Tully, and Brian Langley. I know that your schedules are extremely busy, so we're very appreciative that you took the time to actually come to Westgate and be socially distanced enough to do this for us. there were so many words and phrases that came out of there that I had written down. I have so many notes. Story, marketing it, not the normal, but potential, best practices, resiliency, creating jobs. Opportunities are abundant. There's so many things that are happening within Westgate at Crane and in the fence there that a lot of people don't even realize. So we're appreciative of where we are working now, looking forward to the future. We thank you all for who attended. We thank you for the panel, all the people that worked behind the scenes to help make this work out. We appreciate that too. There will be, the recording of this will be sent to you via email, as well as some contact information for the panel members so that you can ask questions to them going forward. So you can also follow us on the westgate-academy.com website to see what other future events we have. But otherwise, we hope to look forward to seeing you all in the near future in person. Have a great and safe week. Thank you.